Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Cheers filled the stands as the next two compeers took the arena. This was the second of the three anticipated matches, a Hyuga and Kumo's own taijutsu prodigy. Ever since the Hyuga incident, 10 years ago, the citizens of Kumogakure have practically hated the Hyuga. The Hyuga had K their head ninja in Cold B on that night, and worse of all, when a deal was sealed between the two nations, the Hyugas sent some fake body double of the Hyuga leader, who just so happened to be in Kumogakure at this moment. However, now was their chance to get their revenge on the Hyuga. There were two genin who they were counting on to have the ability to take care of a Hyuga. One was Yugito, the other was the very person in the arena right now. In the stands, Naruto could feel it. He could feel all the tension in the stands and all the anger the Kumo population was letting out. It even got to a point where he had to try and see off the Kyuubi's chakra due to what Kurama deemed negative emotions overload. However, there was one source of negative emotions that Naruto had managed to pick up that really caught his attention: Hiyashi. Hiyashi-sama, is everything alright? Asked Naruto. Yes, everything's fine, replied Hiyashi. Naruto could easily tell Hiyashi was lying, and he didn't even need the Kyuubi to do so. I'm sorry, but something's bothering you. I can sense it, replied Naruto. What makes you think you can read me, Naruto? Asked Hiyashi. It's an ability I get from Furball, called negative emotions sensing, responded Naruto. Hiyashi's eyes snapped open. So Naruto's managed to obtain that ability, thought Hiyashi. The only other person he knew who could do that was Uzumaki Mito, the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Then I don't need to explain anything to you as you can already feel it. I can, but why? Asked Naruto. Because Kumo has a deep hatred for my clan, and you know the story behind it. I believe Neji told you 6 months ago, replied Hiyashi. Naruto began understanding. As a clan leader, I've probably made a stupid mistake allowing anyone in my clan to come here, but as a father, I couldn't let my daughter's confidence suffer as she has worked so hard to improve it. Well, Hinata will do fine, said Naruto. Hiyashi simply nodded as he still kept some worries secret. Down in the arena, the two opponents faced each other and B signaled the start of the fight as Hinata activated her dojutsu. Yumo made the first move, rushing towards his opponent at high speeds and appearing before her with a clenched fist, taking a shot towards Hinata's solar plexus. Had it not been for the training Hinata had done over the past month, she would not have been able to react quick enough to block it. Hinata brought her hands up just in time to block the attack, as it sent her sliding back. What strength, commented Naruto. Yes, he does the same thing that Sakura does, focusing chakra into his arms to increase the strength of his attack, replied Guy. Naruto cringed slightly, knowing how powerful Sakura could get with her punches. Be careful, Hinata. Back in the arena, that last attack of Yumo's had given Hinata some room to be able to prepare a defense, and she was now parrying Yumo's attacks using the defensive form of the Yuken while trying to strike at an occasional Tenketsu point. However, Yumo was quick in dodging most of her jabs. Those that he couldn't dodge, he would block with an open palm, having his hand take the chakra blast instead of the rest of his body. Yumo sent a quick punch at Hinata, who was forced to block this attack, only to have Yumo's knee up into her stomach as her defenses suddenly broke down and Yumo was able to deliver another blow to the middle of her C, which sent her rolling back. Hinata was able to recover quickly after that, but those two attacks had hurt and she was starting to pant. As she made her way to her feet, Yumo was quickly heading towards her and Hinata had to act fast before he was upon her. Protection of the 8 trigrams. She called out, moving her hands in a rapid flurry and unleashing her defensive shield. Yumo skidded to a stop before making contact with the shield, but his forearms hit the sphere of chakra and he was left with a few deeper gashes on him due to the C nature of the wind chakra. Yuken, 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Called out Hinata as she went on the offensive, striking Yumo with 64 rapid strikes to his Tenketsu. Yeah, way to go, Hinata. That got him, shouted Naruto from the stands, as Yumo was blasted back. If he looked over, he would have seen Hiashi tense up. He, is that the best the fabled Hyuga clan has? Laughed Yumo, getting to his feet. What? Shouted a surprised Naruto from the stands. Wait, didn't Hinata's attack hit? Naruto looked over towards Hiashi for answers. Hiashi was not happy indeed. Yumo had somehow found a way to combat the Yukin. It did, but before she landed the attack, he was able to exert chakra bursts from his tenketsu. As Hinata's chakra entered his system, they met the chakra bursts and were cushioned to a point where they were no longer at full power, growled Hiashi. Then that means, said Guy. Yes, he can fight the Yukin. Hiashi was not happy at all. It's not as good as Neji or Hinata, but he has pretty good chakra control to the point where he can send small bursts from his tenketsu. I hate to admit it, but Kumo's actually found a way that gives them a chance to combat the Yukin. I'll need to work on a way to fix this. Hinata looked on in shock as Yumo got to his feet. She was sure she got all 64 hits to hit a tenketsu, yet her Byakugan was only showing maybe 8, 10 at most. Tenketsu closed. Hey, your Yukin won't work on me, replied Yumo. Taking advantage of Hinata's surprise, Yumo rushed forward and landed a strong hit in Hinata's solar plexus, throwing the girl back, knocking all the wind out of her, and causing Hinata to cough up a bit of B. Now then, about those eyes of your. What? Shouted Hiashi from the stands. Was her Compor really going to try and take Hinata's eyes in this fight? Figures she would be the reason we lose the Byakugan, said Aro a few rows back. She always was weak. We should have just had her sealed in the first place. That way, we could just K her now before her opponent gets his hands on our prized bloodline. Just shut up, growled Naruto, getting up from his seat and turning to face the Hyuga elder. The QB-backed ki that Naruto was focusing solely on Aro sent the poor elder shivering in fear as he almost vomited. Of course, there were other sources of ki, most notably from Hiashi, Kurenai, and Kiba, and even some form the sweet little Hanabi. Hinata won't disappoint. Tabayo. Watch your place, demon. Threatened Aro. It was then that Iruka quietly stood up, walked over to Aro and sa a good hard punch into the Hyuga elder's face. Don't ever talk about Naruto like that. Threatened Iruka. Needless to say, this earned Iruka a round of applause. All the Konoha people present had begun to respect Naruto a lot more after his match, and they weren't going to let some stuck-up elder with a stick, larger than his ego, shoved deep in his ear insult Naruto. Back in the arena, Hinata made her way to her feet, clutching her side. She most likely had a broken rib after that last hit. I can't let him hit me. He's too strong to face straight up. And my Yukin isn't strong enough to defeat him. Naruto, no. I can't give up, thought Hinata, steeling herself and turning to face her opponent. Hinata slipped back into her taijutsu stance, only it was slightly different from the traditional Yukin. Unlike the traditional Yukin, Hinata had her weight on the balls of her feet and not on the heels. Also, instead of her right hand being at it was up in front of her with it tucked into her body and the elbow raised. So you still want to fight? Asked Yumo. Fine. I'll beat you up a little more before clamming those eyes. Yumo lunged forward with a fist at Hinata, who in her new stance was able to move backwards with much more ease and spin out of the way of Yumo's attack. This little dance continued on for a few more strikes, all of which, Hinata was able to stay out of Yumo's way. Whoa, what's Nisan doing? Exclaimed Hanabi. Why don't you tell me, Hanabi, replied Hiashi to his daughter. Naruto also found himself drawn to this conversation as well. It looks kind of like she's dancing out there, replied the younger Hyuga. That is definitely different from the Yukin Hiashi-sama, what is it? Asked Guy. We call it the Yuho, gentle step. Hinata has always been a failure at the Yukin, I will admit, but recently we discovered that the reason lay in the Yukin itself, not Hinata. Guy-san, from working with my nephew, you are familiar that the Yukin has earth elements in it, correct? Guy nodded at this. Well, this form of taijutsu that we've begun developing which takes use of Hinata's natural wind affinity. I see. Like the wind, she stays just out of reach, said Guy as he was briefly interrupted. Yumo lashed out with roundhouse kick, which Hinata managed to evade once again. This time, however, she saw her opening as she quickly turned and landed 2 strikes to Yumo's back. Yumo saw this coming and braced himself for the incoming Yukin strike by unleashing small chakra bursts from his tenketsu on his back. And striking when an opportunity presents itself, finished Guy. Hiashi nodded. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Huh, what's that? Asked Naruto. Sorry, wrong universe. Okay, weird fox, replied Naruto. As Hinata's attacks landed, Yumo immediately grabbed his back in pain and dropped to his knees. What the hell was that? I was certain I sent chakra bursts to counteract the Yukin, but that was like shoving a serrated knife through my side and twisting it, thought Yumo in pain. Up in the stands, a certain Hyuga saw what had happened, and he honestly couldn't be happier. Yeah, way to go Hinata, shouted Naruto. Wait, what just happened there? The true potential of the Yuho that we realized it possesses. Those two slight attacks of hers have practically destroyed the chakra network in that area, thanks to the wind chakra she infused in her strikes, replied Hiashi, examining Yumo's chakra network with his Byakugan. The two Tenketsu points that Hinata had hit, one just below his right shoulder and the other just below the ribs on the right side, looked as if they had been diced into pieces. Whether or not they would recover was unknown. While healing the chakra network wasn't impossible, it was something only the best medics could do, and even to them, it was extremely difficult. Wow! Exclaimed Naruto. As Yumo struggled to his feet, he was trying to comprehend exactly how two mere taps like that could hurt so bad. That hurt you be. You'll pay. Gate of opening, open. Gate of healing, open. Yumo shouted as he opened the first two of the 8 celestial gates. This caused Guy and Lee to raise an eyebrow. Guy-sensei, did he just? Asked Lee. It appears you are not the only one able to open gates, Lee, replied Guy. With the increased flow of chakra through his body, Yumo was able to ignore the pain in his side caused by Hinata's strikes. However, that didn't mean that the two chakra points in his right side began healing themselves. While the initial pulse of chakra had opened all the other closed Tenketsu, those two remained closed, or possibly destroyed. With a raging fury, Yumo charged at Hinata, forcing the Hyuga heiress to frantically dodge his attacks. If it hadn't been for her speed and agility training these past few weeks, there would be no way she would be able to avoid them, but she found herself able to, even if only barely. Hinata ducked underneath one of Yumo's punches, placing herself in a crouching position just below her opponent. Futon, pressure palm. Hinata shouted, driving a palm of compressed wind chakra into Yumo's gut and forcing him backwards to give her some necessary breathing room. You know, I've been wondering about that move ever since Naruto used it. It looks very familiar to one of the Hyuga clan's techniques, replied Hiashi, looking towards Naruto and Asuma for answers. I'd be lying if I wasn't intrigued by that fact as well, but the jutsu is actually a rather simple wind jutsu that I learned from my sensei. Which makes me think, were there wind users in your clan at any time? Asked Asuma. I honestly cannot say for sure. If there were, they'd be from the early days of the clan, replied Hiashi. There are no wind users and there never have been. And your daughter's disgracing the clan by using such techniques, replied the Hyuga elder from a few rows back, earning a glare from, well, most of the people there. What am I going to do about the Hyuga elders? Replied Naruto. They're never going to leave Hinata alone. Feed 'em to the big giant fox in your head, joked Kurama. Tempting, but no, responded Naruto as the two soon found themselves in a debate over what to do about the Hyuga elders. After pressure palming Yumo, Hinata was not wasting any time. She had heard the stories from Neji about Lee using the gates, and if she waited any longer, there was a good chance she'd be back in the situation she was before. Yumo lashed out a sweeping kick at Hinata, hoping to catch her in the head, but she just ducked underneath the attack, striking a few Tenketsu in Yumo's legs and sending the Kumo ninja collapsing to the ground. The chakra in his legs had been severely off, with only one path remaining open for the chakra to flow to the legs through. As such, Yumo found himself unable to move the legs effectively and was now unable to get himself to his feet. The match was basically over as Hinata moved towards her opponent and placed a knife against his T, prompting B to call the match as there was most likely no way Yumo would give on his own power. The Kumo ninja couldn't help but glare and growl at the Hyuga, having lost after putting in so much time that he thought that he had come up with a way to fight Hyugas. Yeah, way to go Hinata! Shouted Naruto with the rest of the Konoha populace joining in. Unfortunately, they were soon overtaken as the rest of the crowd, most of which were Kumo, began booing and jeering. What? Those bastards! Replied Naruto getting up from his seat, only to be restrained by Hiashi himself. I told her that this would be the likely reaction should she win. Ever since that day, any relations between our clan and Kumo have been strained to the breaking point. I believe Kumo saw this as an opportunity to prove themselves better than the Hyuga, and as Hinata was the victor, they are taking out their frustration on her, commented Hiashi. It does not matter if these people dislike me, as long as I make Naruto, father, Hanabi, and my friends proud, thought Hinata before slowly making her way into the stadium to get her injuries checked on. Up in the stands, Naruto had already bolted away from everyone else to find Hinata. Hiashi followed shortly after, only without as much energy. While the Konoha crowd was happy that Hinata was the victor, Kumo was beginning to fume at the defeat of their taijutsu prodigy to a Hyuga. To make matters worse, they didn't have another chance to beat a Hyuga this round as the remaining two Hyugas were matched up against each other. Oh well, if one of their shinobi couldn't beat a Hyuga, they'd just have to hope either Neji or Shinji K one another. Up in the cage box, Suin could feel some heat coming from the rakeage. Yumo had mentioned about going for Hinata's eyes. Was the rakeage actually hoping Yumo would get them? Thought Suin. If this was the case, then things were not looking good and long-buried tensions were beginning to show themselves. Neji and Shinji took the field. Neji knew what to expect. He knew Shinji would use the seal on him, and honestly he didn't really care right now. The fate of the branch family had always been to cower away at the first mention of the seal, but he was going to defy that fate and stand. Despite having accepted Hinata, Hanabi, and Hiashi, Neji still bore a strong resentment for the main branch families over their treatment for the branch families. If anything, he was determined to make a statement here, that the only thing keeping the branch in their place was the seal itself, and once that was gone, those main brancher were screwed. B signaled the start of the fight and Neji was off at an unbelievably quick speed, probably just a little faster than Lee with his weights. Before Shinji could even react, Neji was upon him and a few quick strikes were thrown at the main branch Hyuga. You are within my field of divination, Neji called out. Yukan, 8 trigrams, 128 palms. Neji struck Shinji with the upgraded form of the 64 palms and Shinji felt the chakra flowing through his body become severely limited. But that wasn't the end of it. Kaiten. Neji spun, unleashing his most powerful Kaiten ever, throwing Shinji halfway across the arena. Shinji was seriously hurting right now. Neji had landed a series of over 130 attacks on him in less than 15 seconds. How dare that branch member use main branch techniques? No, he will pay, said Shinji as Neji ran towards his opponent. Hinata, shouted Naruto, wrapping his arms around his girlfriend. That was amazing. Ouch. Hinata cringed in pain a little as Naruto loosened his bear hug on her. Sorry, replied Naruto, rubbing the back of his head. No, it's okay, replied Hinata. No, it's not. I completely forgot that you might have broken a rib out there. I should have been more gentle, replied Naruto. Come on, let's go find Shizune and get you fixed up. There you two are. Father, replied Hinata. She could immediately see that her father was proud of how she handled herself out there. He joined the pair as they walked towards the infirmary. I am proud of how you handled yourself out there and how well you seem to adapt well to that new style, replied Hiashi, making Hinata smile warmly. Yeah, that was so cool. It was like you were dancing out there. You were amazing, replied Naruto. Now Hinata was starting to blush. Thank you, said Hinata, slipping back into her stutter slightly, completely unsure of how to react. I felt a lot better fighting like that. It just felt more natural. I see. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of how your mother used to fight, and that's actually where I got the form from, replied Hiashi. Wait, I thought Hinata's mother was a Hyuga. If so, then why did she have a different taijutsu form? Asked Naruto as the three arrived at the infirmary that Shizune had set up for the Konoha compeers. While Shizune was bandaging Hinata up and checking her over, Hiashi explained the answer to Naruto. Her mother, my wife, was not from Hyuga clan. She was married into the clan. As such, she never learned the Yukan, nor did she have the Byakugan. However, that form you just saw was her mother's taijutsu form, was known as the Meisho, dancing step. As a fighter, she was one of the few who could go up against a Hyuga in taijutsu. It really was something incredible, watching her fight. It was like she was floating through the air, aloof and untouchable. But when she struck, the results were devastating. Her mother was also the source of her wind chakra. In reality, she is more of her mother's daughter than she is mine, and I have been treating her like she was mine all this time. And for that, I have been a fool, explained Hiyashi. Hey, don't beat yourself up too hard. Everything's all better now. You love your daughter and she loves you, so that's all in the past now, replied Naruto. All better. Just try and take it easy for a few days, said Shizune as she led Hinata out of the room. Perhaps ask Sakura if she can heal you a little in the evenings if you don't see me. Now I know you want to get back to watching the matches, so go ahead. Thank you, Shizune, bowed Hinata. Let's go. I bet Neji's kicking a right now, declared Naruto. At that time, they heard a pain-filled scream through the stadium, Neji's pain-filled scream to be exact. Neji-Nisan, shouted Hinata as she ran off towards the entrance to the field, leaving both Naruto and Hiyashi in the dust. Shinji struggled to his feet as Neji fell to his knees. Shinji had activated the caged bird seal just before Neji could continue on with his assault. Stay down there, said Shinji in an authoritative voice. You are nothing more than a branch member. Wasn't it always you complaining about fate? Well, this is your fate. No matter how hard you struggle, you will always be beneath me. Neji's screams could be heard throughout the stadium and a few of the Kumo members in the audience were actually enjoying the Hyuga prodigy's pain. They honestly didn't care who won this match, so long as a Hyuga suffered, and it was looking to be that way so far. As Shinji's words began echoing throughout Neji's head, he did something no one would have expected. Neji stood, fighting the pain of the seal. I have learned that fate is not certain. If one is strong, they can forge their own fate, grunted Neji as the pain in his head intensified. Suddenly, for some reason, the pain stopped. Had Shinji released the seal, or was were the thoughts going through Neji's head? When Neji managed to look up, he saw Hinata standing in front of him and Shinji on his A. Well, isn't this something? The pathetic failure of an heiress come to a measly branch member's rescue, mocked Shinji. Call me pathetic, call me a failure, call me a loose, call me whatever you want, but don't you dare insult those close to me, responded Hinata with more resolve than anyone could have thought possible of her. If Neji's so pathetic and weak, why did someone as strong and powerful as a main branch member have to resort to using the seal? He needed to be put in his place. And it's only a matter of time before you're in the same place he is, replied Shinji. Hinata-sama, why? I could have, replied a weak Neji. No, even if you somehow managed to beat him, the elders wouldn't have approved and you would be subject to the seal when we return. There is no way I could let you suffer that, replied Hinata. After all, you are like a brother to me and I care just as much for you as I do Hanabi-chan or even Naruto. Hey yo, sorry bros, but I have to call the show, said B. Hyuga Shinji wins. There was no applause for Shinji. The Kumo that hated the Hyugas were too busy fussing over how the same Hyuga who had beat their prodigy earlier had stopped the suffering of another Hyuga, while those who were more or less indifferent couldn't believe that Shinji had won in such a way that he did. I understand. Thank you, Hinata-Nisan, said Neji before losing conscious. He was caught by Hiyashi before he could fall to the ground. To be able to fight through the seal like that, your boy really is something, Hisashi. I'm sorry, but Jiraiya-sensei is still trying to figure out how to remove it. The moment that comes, I promise I will have Neji's seal removed, Hiyashi thought, looking up towards the heavens. His attention then turned to Shinji. The way in which you won was very disgraceful to both you and the clan. I expected better, but it seems I was mistaken. Should you ever activate the seal again, on any member of the clan, I will have you sealed and banished, if not worse. Shinji cringed at the clan head's threat as he walked off the field. As he walked into the tunnel, he came face to face with a red-eyed Naruto. You'd better pray we don't meet in the next round, because if we do, you'll regret that. In fact, if I were you, I'd really be praying you don't face Hinata. After what I just saw, she'd be the last person I'd want to face in your situation, threatened Naruto, adding a little more demonic chakra to drive the point home with Shinji. Shinji walked away as Hiyashi passed by as well, carrying Neji. Hinata stopped by Naruto and gave him a worrying hug and Naruto saw that she was crying. I am sorry that you have to deal with someone like that, said Gaara as he came through the tunnel to his match. It's not your fault he's such an but believe me, he will pay. Tabayo, replied Naruto. Now, good luck out there and kick some A. Thank you, Naruto, said Gaara as he walked out into the arena and Naruto and Hinata made their way to the stands. So how is Neji? Asked Sakura. Father says he'll be fine. He'll need to rest his head for a bit though, replied Hinata. Down in the arena, the fight started with Gaara sending out a wave of sand towards his opponent. Raiten, Electro Pulse, shouted Gaara's opponent, Yakimaru. By clapping his hands together, Yakimaru sent out a weak pulse of electricity that caused Gaara's sand to drop to the ground. While that attack may not have been powerful enough to do any real damage to Gaara, it was enough to disrupt the chakra in his sand. Shortly after, Gaara managed to regain control of his sand. I see, replied Gaara. Sand lightning needles, said Gaara as his sand rose and then showered down upon the field as dozens of forked sand needles stuck into the ground. Gaara then sent his sand towards Yakimaru again. Fine, let's try this on for size. Raiten, static discharge, shouted Yakimaru as he gathered electricity in his hands and shot it towards Gaara. However, the bolt of lightning quickly diverged from its targeted path and went straight for one of the sand lightning rods, being absorbed into the ground, and a surprised Yakimaru was blasted with Gaara's sand. Surrender, replied Gaara as the sand wrapped around Yakimaru. Hey, you think this little ball of sand can hold me? Bluffed Yakimaru. Gaara simply clenched his fist and the sand tightened its hold around Yakimaru, maybe crushing a rib or two. I'll give you one last chance. Surrender, or I crush you, said Gaara, tightening the sand just a little more for emphasis. Whoa. Fine, I give, surrendered Yakimaru. B called the match in Gaara's favor. There were a few cheers coming from the Konoha and Suna sections, but otherwise, nothing as Gaara simply walked off the field. As of now, Kumo was 1-3 and the tension could be felt throughout the crowd. Thankfully for them, Yakuro was up next. He was another prodigy of Kumogakure and surely he could win him another victory. Alright, it's Sasuke's turn, declared Naruto. Everyone heard a deafening shriek coming from next to them and they saw its source as Ino. Sorry, force of habit, apologized Ino. So Kakashi-sensei, anything you want to tell us? Asked Naruto. Yep, watch, said Kakashi. Naruto and Sakura sweat dropped at Kakashi not really saying anything. Out in the arena, Sasuke and Yakuro faced each other. You know, I'm not as lame as my teammates. To me, you really are a weakling, commented Yakuro. So you may last a few seconds longer, I'm still going to kick your, replied Sasuke. Let's go. Yeah, shouted B, signaling the start of the fight. Sasuke activated his eyes as he and Yakuro charged at each other, Yakuro's sword in his hand, and a kunai for Sasuke. As the two clashed, the sound of clanking metal echoed throughout the stadium. Kaiten, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu, said Sasuke as he unleashed a barrage of fireballs at Yakuro. Suten, Water Wall Encampment, said Yakuro as he formed a defensive wall of water in front of him, cancelling out Sasuke's attacks. A cloud of steam erupted when the two jutsu collided and Yakuro came charging through the cloud with his sword at the ready. Sasuke parried the sword and returned a punch to Yakuro's gut, sending the Kumo ninja back. Yakuro growled. Suten, uplifting wave. Yakuro s his hands into the ground beneath him and a large surge of water appeared from it, blasting Sasuke back into the wall of the arena. Yakuro then began to walk towards the drenched Sasuke and placed the tip of his sword against Sasuke's en. Told you were weak, mocked Yakuro. And you're even more of a barker than Naruto if you thought I'd lose this easily, replied Sasuke. Suddenly, Sasuke began to crackle with electricity as his entire body began to disappear in a flash of electricity. In this flash of electricity, Yakuro got shocked himself as he was standing in the same puddle that Sasuke had been lying in. Kakashi-sensei, what kind of clone was that? Asked Naruto. Raiten, shadow clone, replied Kakashi. In that cloud of steam, Sasuke went off to set something up while he gave Yakuro a lightning clone to deal with. Yakuro shook off the electricity just in time to turn and see a barrage of fireballs coming towards him again. Hey, this again. Suten, Water Wall Encampment. Like last time, a defensive wall of water was shot out of Yakuro's mouth as it intercepted Sasuke's attacks. However, within the fireballs, Sasuke had concealed shuriken, which managed to make it through the water, and Yakuro found himself trying to dodge about a dozen shuriken. Two managed to hit Yakuro, one in his right thigh and the other in his right side of the abdomen. Kaiten, dragon fire breath, shouted Sasuke from the wall above Yakuro, sending a pillar of flame straight down on the Kiri ninja. Yakuro just barely managed to dodge the attack, burning his right foot slightly in the process. Damn it, take this, Rantan, laser circus, shouted Yakuro as he used his Kekkei Genkai. From his hands, half a dozen beams of energy shot outward towards Sasuke. Raiten, epicenter of the storm. As Sasuke finished his jutsu, multiple bolts of lightning came down from the sky and surrounded Sasuke as they worked their way outwards, intercepting and blocking Yakuro's attack. In the cage box, Tsunade was admiring the stunned look on the Raikage's face. What? How the hell did he get that jutsu? Shouted a furious Raikage, his hand into his chair and busting the arm. Down in the stands, Kakashi couldn't help but smile upon hearing this. Kakashi-sensei, what was that technique? Asked Sakura. Epicenter of the storm. It was a technique that Kumogakure treasured as one of their secret techniques and one that I managed to copy from a Kumo shinobi back in the Third War, said Kakashi with an eye smile. It's an A-rank lightning jutsu that creates a cylindrical wall of lightning, which progresses outwards for a range of about 5 to 10 meters. While it seems like a defensive jutsu, it's also a good offensive jutsu if your opponent is within those 5 to 10 meters. Seriously, it's like no one knows what not to do when there's a Sharingan around. Throughout the stands, a good portion of the Kumogakure shinobi were in shock that one of the beloved jutsu had been stolen. Sasuke merely smirked at Yakuro's stunned expression. Soon, Yakuro's expression turned to one of rage as he began losing his cool. Rantan, laser circus, he shouted, even louder this time and focusing more chakra into his attack. This time, about a dozen laser beams shot outwards and struck Sasuke. Hey, got you this time, bastard, grinned Yakuro. That grin instantly disappeared when he saw Sasuke just standing there, completely unharmed and smirking back. What's the matter? Is that all you have? Taunted Sasuke. Yakuro charged at Sasuke in a blind rage, impaling Sasuke with his sword, only for Sasuke to disappear into thin air. And to think, I was actually hoping you'd be a challenge, replied Sasuke. Yakuro turned around to see Sasuke right behind him as he with his sword, only for Sasuke to disappear again once his sword through. What? Yakuro's eyes grew wider. I see, Genjutsu. Kai. Yakuro dispelled the genjutsu that Sasuke had placed him under, but it was too late. When his vision finally cleared, he felt a tingling sensation at the back of his and the sound of chirping birds right behind his ears. Looks like you've finally figured it out. Too bad it's a little too late, said Sasuke. I suggest you surrender if you don't want to know the sensation of having 1,000 birds shoved through your head. Yakuro could only growl. Sasuke had beat him, and he had done it by not only stealing a jutsu from Kumo, but also made him look like a complete fool. You're going to pay, bastard. Yakuro, being foolish, stepped away, turned and swung his sword at Sasuke. Not actually wanting to KO Yakuro, although it really wouldn't have bothered Sasuke that much, Sasuke cancelled the Chidori, ducked underneath Yakuro's swing, activated his flame step, kicked Yakuro into the air, shadowed him and used the Flaming Lion's barrage to knock Yakuro unconscious, and leave a pretty nasty burn on his stomach. Be called Sasuke the winner, and Sasuke just walked off, under all the booing of the crowd. At this point in time, most of the Kumo citizens were about ready to grab their pitchforks and torches. This was supposed to be their Chunin exams, the exams where their ninja shine, not Konoha's. The first 3 matches were fine. Yugito, one of their shinobi, had won her match, Naruto had managed to stop a rampaging, psychotic Jinchuriki from wiping out half the village with a tailed beast ball, and Lee had won his match against a non-Kumo ninja. The 4th match, in which Sakura won against a Kumo ninja, was not too big a loss, but it offset most of the vibes from Yugito's victory. It was Hinata, the heiress of the Hyuga clan, beating their taijutsu prodigy that really began to set things off. It then only went downhill from there as Gaara defeated Yakimaru and now Sasuke defeating their second prodigy in the exams. The final match of the day was about to begin with Shino of Konoha vs. Omoi. The two compeers took the field and Omoi unsheathed his sword as Shino released some of his insects. So Omoi's a kenjutsu fight. asked Kurenai. Kakashi and Guy both nodded. Good. This should be a pretty easy match for Shino then. So long as his opponent can't sense him. Man, the crowd's not looking too happy. I better not disappoint them or else they're going to start booing again. And then after that happens, they're going to start rioting because we only won one match, and then the riots are going to get so out of control that they're going to start going on AK spree, and then, Omoi was snapped out of his thought when B signaled the match to start. Shino began by unleashing a swarm of insects towards Omoi, who jumped backwards away from the cloud of insects. While doing so, he s at them with his sword. The insects simply floated around the sword and Omoi already realized that he was at a disadvantage. Almost all of his skills right now relied on his kenjutsu, and from the looks of it, he would have to get directly to Shino to be effective. At the same time, he knew of Konoha's Aberrane clan and their use of insects. He knew that he couldn't let the insects get to him or else they would quickly drain his chakra from him. After a few minutes of running and dodging Shino's insects, Omoi saw an opening and changed his course so that he was heading straight towards Shino. Cloud style, crescent moon beheading, he said as he swung his sword in a crescent-shaped arc that s through Shino. However, he was taken aback when Shino turned out to be a bug clone. Omoi jumped away from the new swarm of bugs, but landed directly in the middle of the swarm that was already chasing him. Shino, who was standing off to the side, ordered his insects to begin draining Omoi's chakra, and Omoi soon collapsed on the ground, prompting B to call the match, once again for a Konoha ninja. Hanabi awoke to find herself tied up and slung over some random guy's shoulder. She wasn't entirely sure what had happened. The last thing she remembered was that she had returned to the hotel room shortly after the conclusion of the first round. Her father had taken her just before the end of Shino's fight to avoid the crowds, and they made it back safely. After returning to the hotel room, Hiashi had to leave the room for a few minutes to go discuss a few things with Oro, and she was sure she locked the door after he left. As Hanabi turned from the door, to return to the bed where she had some scrolls that she had brought to pass the time, she was suddenly knocked unconscious. When she woke up, she found herself in the situation she was in now, bound, gagged, and blindfolded. Wait, did this person really try to blindfold a Hyuga? The man that was carrying her then threw Hanabi to the ground. From what Hanabi could see, she was surrounded now by about a dozen Kumogakure villages, and the person who carried her was a Kumo shinobi. I see you managed to get that little pipsqueak of a Hyuga, said one of the villagers. One way or another, we're going to get back at those damned Hyugas and Konoha as well. They have no right to just waltz in here and do what they did. To think they could cheat their way through those matches, said another of the villagers. Yep, Hanabi knew she was in trouble now. Anyone could tell that the citizens of Kumogakure were not pleased with the results of the matches, but who would have thought that they'd stoop this low? Well, Reikage-sama will be pleased when we show up at his office, carrying her. We'll let the other mobs take care of the rest of the Konoha ninja, commented another civilian. Even though she was still blindfolded, she could still see thanks to her dojutsu. Hanabi was desperately looking around now for any sign of help. After a few minutes of searching while the villagers were discussing what sort of reward the Reikage would give them, she was about to give up hope that no one was going to come and save her. That is until she saw a red-tinted chakra up on the roof. The only person she knew with that color chakra was Naruto Nisan, and from the looks of it, it was in fact Naruto. Hey guys, let's just get her to the Reikage and we'll see what exactly our reward will be, said one of the villagers, ending the discussion. The rest of them nodded and Hanabi was picked back up and thrown over someone's shoulder. However, before they could head out, an explosion of smoke appeared around them. By the time the smoke cleared, the villagers saw that Hanabi had been replaced with a large sack of potatoes on the villager's shoulder. Naruto Nisan, exclaimed Hanabi as she felt her bindings being seized. When she was able to move again, she had ungagged herself and removed the blindfold. Man, this place has gone crazy. I try to get a bowl of ramen, which the chef refuses to serve me, and then I almost get attacked, said Naruto. And on my way back to the hotel, I find you being thrown around by a bunch of villagers. Hey, get back here with that, shouted one of the shinobi villages that Naruto had stolen Hanabi from. What the hell is wrong with this place? Asked Naruto. How are we going to lose them? Asked Hanabi. Don't worry, I've got an idea. Shadow clone jutsu! Exclaimed Naruto as about 20 Narutos carrying Hanabis on their backs popped into existence. Immediately, all 21 Naruto out of Hanabis split off, going in different directions and leaving the villages in the dust, utterly confused. Every Konoha citizen who was still in Kumo at the time was gathered in a large conference room of the inn they were staying at. Almost all of them had also experienced hostile actions from the Kumo populace after the matches concluded. Most of the hostility was simply in the forms of taunts and insults, however there were a few that were attacked by drunken mobs, and one woman was almost raped. Thankfully, she was saved by Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu and Ino's feared kick in the balls no jutsu. No one was happy, but there was one person who was beyond unhappy. He was furious and ready to K. "Where is my daughter?" shouted Hiashi as he entered the conference room. "I'm here, father," said Hinata, emerging from the crowds. She had a bruise on her face from a random outburst by a Kumo villager on her way back to the hotel. Needless to say, that idiot that decided to attack her found himself in worse shape when Sakura retaliated, not letting anyone get away with hurting her friend. The bastard was just lucky that Naruto was not there. That there, nearly started a fight within Kumo and the Konoha people barely managed to get out without things escalating too far. Wait, Hanabi. The Raikage was overlooking the village from his office. After the matches concluded, the entire village went to hell. No one, not even he, was happy about the results. There was no way Konoha could come in and practically kick Kumo's A. It was impossible. Kumo was supposed to be the strongest of the 5 great villages and here Konoha made them look like nothing more than a minor village. To make things worse, that Naruto brat turned out to be something more than anyone expected. Naruto had defeated the Rokubi Junkuriki, a member of Kirigakure, and as such, he was hailed by the crowds. In a way, this was fine as his victory was not over a Kumo ninja. It was how Naruto defeated the Rokubi Jinchuriki that was the problem. Naruto had won, using an Uzumaki seal, one that only an Uzumaki could use. A was certain the last Uzumaki was K when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha 12 years ago. Before that, Kumo had been a part of the collation of forces that had wiped out Uzushigakure, leaving only one Uzumaki alive that the world knew of after that. That one Uzumaki was left in Konoha and Kumo had attempted to K her, only to be foiled by the Yellow Flash himself. A was broken from his thoughts by a knock on his office door and what appeared to be a frustrated Tsunade. What the hell is going on? I'm getting reports left and right from my shinobi that they are finding themselves under attack by Kumo villages and shinobi alike. Shouted Tsunade. How can you let your villagers act like this? Especially in the middle of an international event. And what do you expect me to do? Arrest half my village, replied A. I'd at least expect some form of order. My people have been taunted, attacked, nearly raped, and I've just gotten word of a certain girl who might have been K. You're the Raikage and this is your village. I expect some form of action to put this unrest to rest, demanded Tsunade. The Raikage just simply sat there, silent. Wait, you're not just going to sit there, are you? Asked Tsunade, growing increasingly frustrated with her fellow Kage. Like I said, what do you expect me to do? Arrest half my people, replied the Raikage. He's acting like a spoiled little brat. Is this all because my ninja beat his? Thought Tsunade. I hope you realize that if this keeps up, you'll be in violation of several of the international treaties surrounding the exams and you'll be responsible for whatever actions are taken. You think your words can threaten me, Tsunade? Asked the Raikage, raising an eyebrow. If I am correct, I was not the one who provoked this sort of action. Oh, so that is what this is about. Well, what do you expect me to do? Have my ninja throw their matches? Just so I could satisfy your village's overblown ego. Replied Tsunade in a harsh tone. As his fist down on his desk, breaking it. He then took a deep breath trying to regain his calm. Tsunade, you saved one of my shinobi a couple years back and if it wasn't for that Uzumaki brat of yours, I would be dealing with an enraged Jinchuriki right about now, so I will fix this problem, said A. Tsunade let out a small sigh of relief, until she heard what A's solution was. Leave. What? Tsunade shouted. You can't be serious. I said, leave. The people of my village are upset because of the presence of your ninja. The only way I can calm them down, is to have Konoha leave. I'll give you till midnight tonight, after that, I will not be responsible for what happens, said the Raikage. Tsunade couldn't believe it. She wanted to laugh, but she was in no mood for laughing. Fine, but the next time someone hands you your sorrier on a silver platter, or shoves an explosive bug in your comrade's sea, don't come crying to me. On her way out, Tsunade s the office door so hard that it shattered and the rakeage turned to continue with his thoughts. I thought we were finally done with those bastards. The night the Yondaime Hokage s to seal the Kyuubi, I thought the plague of the Uzumaki's s with him when we heard that the last Uzumaki s on that night as well. The rakeage continued his thoughts, contemplating on the best way to handle the threat of the return of the Uzumakis. Hiyashi-sama, you can't. It's too dangerous out there right now, commented one of the Konoha Chunin that had come to watch the exams. As of now, he was trying his best to keep the enraged father at bay. Hiyashi forced himself out of the conference room and out into the lobby of the inn. Well, what do you expect me to do? I'm not about to leave my daughter out there with those savages, replied a furious father. Speaking of which, where's Naruto? Asked Sakura. Knowing him, he probably went out to find some ramen, commented Sasuke. Naruto, Hanabi, was all a concerned Hinata could say. Hey, don't worry Hinata. They'll be fine, said Kiba, trying to comfort his teammate. As Hiyashi was about to open the inn's door, a black and orange blur came shooting through, nearly s the door in Hiyashi's face. Man, it's crazy out there. I thought the Konoha mobs were bad, but these guys are brutal. I go out for a quick bowl of ramen and one find this being thrown around by a bunch of villagers, commented Naruto, smiling and pointing to Hanabi on his back. Hinata came rushing over, wrapping Naruto up in a tight-up as Hanabi climbed off of Naruto's shoulders. What are you talking about? Konoha doesn't have any mobs like this, commented Kiba. Maybe not for you, but because of well, yeah, I experience this at least once a year, replied Naruto. Every member in that room was really feeling sorry after hearing that. Most of them had some idea what Naruto went through each year on his birthday, and yet none of them had really done anything to help. While he still wasn't their favorite person, everyone there did have a newfound respect for the blonde after his fight against the rampaging Jinchuriki. Naruto, replied Kiba. No, it's fine. You didn't really know until just recently. But still, what the hell is wrong with these people? Asked Naruto. Yeah, it's like they've all gone facco, replied Kiba. Before Naruto could add on to the joke, he was interrupted by Hiyashi. Thank you Naruto, for saving my daughter, Hiyashi said, giving Naruto a bow. Hinata also came over and rewarded Naruto with AK. A few people argued, Shinji gagged, and Neji and Hiyashi resisted the protective urges to pummel Naruto. However, they would permit it this once, seeing as he was the reason Hanabi was safe. Break it up, you two lovebirds, shouted Tsunade entering the room. Everyone could tell she was pissed at something. Hokage-sama, what's going on? Asked Iruka. Everyone go and pack your bags, we are leaving, ordered Tsunade. There was a pause for a few moments before Naruto managed to break it. What? He shouted. But Hokage-sama, why? Naruto nearly slipped there, but remembered his promise to lay of the bark and stuff for a few months. Just look outside. I'm not about to risk my shinobi all because the Raikage and his village can't keep their inflated egos under control, said Tsunade. Naruto still looked slightly confused. What she means is that we kicked their in the matches and they are not happy about it, explained Sakura. Wait, but what about the other round of fighting? Does this mean none of us are going to make Chunin? Asked a concerned Naruto. Just go pack and be back here in an hour, ready to leave. I'll decide what we do about the exams once we get out of Crazy Town, replied Tsunade. Shosho, if I may ask, where are we headed? Asked Sakura. We're going back to Konoha, but we will need to stop along the way. I want to get out of Lightning Country though, so we'll probably be moving constantly for about 2 days. We'll probably make it to some town in the north of Hot Water Country. We'll stop there to rest afterwards, explained Tsunade. An hour later, all Konoha shinobi, and the few civilians, who had made it to Kumo for the exams were gathered in the same lobby, all the gear packed in bags, with the exception of Team 7. Look at you three, think you're so cool for sealing your stuff away instead of carrying it on your back, teased Kakashi. All 3 members of his team let out a little smile. Right, let's get a move on it, shouted Tsunade. After all, we don't want to keep from ruining the bastards' parties. As the entire Konoha collation, consisting of roughly 120 to 130 individuals, left the inn. Almost every citizen outside was waiting for them, glaring at them. They were everywhere and there were no paths, save one. A path to the gates of the village. As some would call it, a walk of shame, although the Konoha populace held their heads up high as they realized that pissing Kumo off this bad was an accomplishment, something that had not been achieved since the time of the Yondaime. After nearly 2 days of traveling, the Konoha caravan arrived in the capital city of the land of hot water, Nagastachi. Nagastachi was a rather beautiful capital city with a rather large palace at the center of the city. However, what really caught most people's attention were the hot springs scattered throughout the city. After a continuous 2 days' worth of traveling, everyone needed a chance to relax, and many of this city's luxuries would give them such an opportunity. Before they could do whatever they want, Tsunade spoke. Konoha is about a day and a half away if we keep up the same pace we did. We'll leave tomorrow at 1 p.m., giving you plenty of time to rest. After that, it's going to be a straight shot for Konoha. Any questions? Asked Tsunade. Yes, I hope it wouldn't be too bothersome if we join you, said a familiar voice coming from behind the group. I see you guys got kicked out of Kumo as well. Asked Tsunade. The Sand Trio and their sensei nodded. The rest of you are dismissed, but I want the 8 exam participants to remain here for a moment. Gaara, Temari, the 2 of you may join in as well if you want. What is it, Shosho? Asked Sakura. The rest of the Konoha 12, the Sand Trio, and their respective senseis had stayed behind to wait for their friends out-off students. Concerning the exams, the 10 of you have 2 options. 1. You could call it quits right now and be judged on just the first round. Or 2. We can hold one more round of matches in the Konoha Stadium and you can give it one last chance to impress the judges, and in front of a more receptive crowd, explained Tsunade. The choice is up to you, but I need to know now if I should have the stadium being prepped. We'll take the second option. Declared Naruto, speaking for everyone. Well, looks like the Gaki's speaking for all of you. Is everyone okay with that? Asked Tsunade. There were absolutely no objections. Very well, it'll take at least a week to make all the necessary arrangements, so use that time to rest and prepare. Oh, and speaking of which, there is a wonderful resort on the southern end of this town that has wonderful outdoor springs and excellent food. I suggest you go there if you're hungry. During the time while Tsunade was distracted, a certain white-haired man used this opportunity to sneak off. After all, this city was known for its hot springs and there were a lot of hot springs that needed researching. Jutsu. Raten. Electropulse. A weak radial pulse is sent out from the user. While the attack is not strong enough to affect a normal person too drastically, it does have enough power to temporarily scramble chakra signals to various tools. Rank. C. Uses. Yakimaru. Raten. Static discharge. The user gathers lightning chakra in their hands and shoots out a bolt of electricity towards the target. While it does not have enough power to K, this attack can easily stun an opponent. Rank. C+. Uses. Yakimaru. Suten. Water wall encampment. The user shoots out a stream of water from their mouth as the water forms into a defensive wave. Rank. B. Uses. Yakuro. Lightning clone jutsu. The user creates a solid clone with electricity as the base. When the clone dispels, it sends out a shockwave at its target. Rank. B. Uses. Hitaki Kakashi, Uchiha Sasuke. Ranten. Storm Release. A rare Kekkei Genkai that utilizes a combination of water and lightning elements. This is also the only Kekkei Genkai that exclusively belongs to Kumogakur. Ranten. Laser Circus. This technique creates several beams and shoots them towards the enemy. The direction of these beams can be altered by the user. As such, this attack can reach multiple targets and even safely bypass hostages and other obstacles. Rank. Uses. Darui, Yakuro. Raten. Epicenter of the storm. A lightning jutsu where multiple lightning bolts shoot down from the sky, surrounding the caster. The lightning then strikes outwards for about 5 to 10 meters. This can function as both a defensive jutsu, and a close-range defensive jutsu. Rank. Uses. Hitaki Kakashi, Uchiha Sasuke. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.